Good afternoon. Over the past 2 months, the world has watched in horror the events that have unfolded in Myanmar. More than 700 lives were brutally murdered. 50 of them were children, some as young as 7 years old. Thousands have been detained or forced to disappear. Homes were looted and burnt to the ground. This is a systematic campaign of heinous crimes waged by the Tatmadaw as it seeks to terrorize the people of Myanmar into submission. If left unhindered, the Tatmadaw will continue its military campaigns on unarmed civilians and ethnic minorities. If nothing is done, thousands more could be slaughtered, hundreds and thousands could be displaced, and the ensuing humanitarian crisis would disrupt the entire region. The atrocities that occur right across our border matter to us, both as Thais and as members of ASEAN. A large-scale forced migration at the height of a global pandemic will surely foment a public health crisis on top of an humanitarian one. And Thailand, as one of the closest neighbors with the longest borders of Myanmar, will be hit particularly hard. The influx of migrants will also mean long-term lodging and sheltering needs for forced migrants whose durable solutions may take years to present themselves. These are the direct results of the Tatmadaw's actions whose consequences Thailand has to shoulder. In 1967, Thailand and 4 other Southeast Asian nations founded ASEAN in the quest for collaboration and regional peace. The founders imagined an alliance of partners that would overcome their differences and join hands in promoting human rights, social justice, and prosperity. The Bangkok Declaration that gave birth to ASEAN stated that the purpose of ASEAN is to promote regional peace and stability, respect for justice and rule of law, and adherence to the principles of the United Nations. The ASEAN Charter also states that we, the people of ASEAN, adhering to the principle of democracy, the rule of law, and good governance, respect for protection of human rights, and the fundamental freedom, hereby decide to establish through this charter the legal and institutional framework of ASEAN. Since the founding of ASEAN, not only has our growing family of nations successfully weathered countless crises, we have stood proud at the world's center stage, providing forums and bringing their foes and adversaries together to work out their differences. For our diverse, fledgling, yet resourceful region, this has been an immense source of pride. The crisis in Myanmar today is a shameful assault on our values and tradition, on the ASEAN way, and on us as a bloc. The principles enshrined in our founding declaration are being tested once again. On the eve of the special ASEAN Summit to be held on the 24th of April in Jakarta, the Move Forward Party calls on ASEAN leaders to establish an ASEAN-led process to put an end to this senseless civilian deaths and resume democratization process in Myanmar. To achieve this, ASEAN will need to consider adopting appropriate mechanisms at its disposal, whether it is in the form of ASEAN Troika, the appointment of an ASEAN Special Envoy, Friends of the Share, and other forms of mediation efforts. We believe that it is a moral imperative for the peace process led by ASEAN to achieve these goals. First, it must strive for a return to democratic normality in which rights, liberties, livelihoods, and human dignity of the people of Myanmar are upheld. Second, it must call for the immediate and unconditional cessation of hostilities and the release of all political prisoners. We believe this is the bare minimum that the people of ASEAN should demand from our leaders as a tangible outcome of this special summit. And let me be clear, the ASEAN leaders must not allow the special summit to be used to lend recognition and legitimacy to the military junta. ASEAN leaders should ensure that all stakeholders actively engage with one another so that a political solution can be achieved through an inclusive process. In this connection, we commend Brunei's decision as the chair of ASEAN to host the special summit at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta, thereby not giving the illegitimate and unelected representative of the Tatmadaw equal footing with other ASEAN leaders. In this regard, we urge ASEAN leaders to extend a standing invitation to the special summit to all stakeholders in Myanmar, including representatives of the National League for Democracy, the CRPH, the armed forces, and all ethnic groups so that an inclusive process of peace negotiations conducted in good faith can finally take place. Moreover, to retain ASEAN centrality amidst this crisis, ASEAN should acknowledge that this is the time to call upon the Security Council to act in accordance with its Chapter 6 powers and establish a fact-finding mission on the situation in Myanmar. Then, to mitigate the ongoing humanitarian crisis, we urge ASEAN leaders to dispatch a needs assessment team to evaluate the humanitarian situation in Myanmar and call on the Tatmadaw to grant unhindered access to humanitarian aid to all areas in the country. While we all know that Thailand, as an important economic player, a close neighbor of Myanmar, and as a founding member of ASEAN, should play a proactive role to mediate the situation. However, the Thai leadership under General Prayuth, in the watchful eyes of the international community, has time and time again failed to demonstrate that it has the moral rectitude to act in the best interest of both the Thai people and the people of Myanmar during these darkest times. The protection and promotion of both Thailand and the region's interests rests ultimately with a mutual prosperity policy that includes a stable and vibrant Myanmar. The opposite scenario spells crises for Thailand and the region as we share over 2,400 kilometers of borders with Myanmar, which lies in the heart of Asia. This is a high time for Prayuth government to start acting out of an enlightened self-interest by showing the people of Myanmar that Thailand is their true friend and not a comrade in arms of the Tatmadaw. Thank you.